Hello everyone, I am your wonderful host Fontaman, and welcome back to Grindfest in War Thunder. It is a new day, and we still have lots of shit to do, so let's get right to work. I've sort of arranged the planes that, well, I think are the most, well, routine, best-performing planes that we've used so far. They be the Invader, the Black Widow, the A-20, and the B-17. The Sky Raider, I guess, kind of left there because, you know what, maybe we might get away with something good in it. Maybe. So, I don't know. I was unsure. So, let's go play the Sky Raider again, just so we can see if we can keep the old Able Dog in our lineup. Because I wanna pilot things like the Sky Raider. I wanna have these things. I wanna be the ground attack P-47 pilot, or, you know, the ground attack Hellcat pilot, and the Sky Raider pilot. It's just that they kinda don't wind up being very good or effective in comparison to shit like the A-20, for example, or the PBJ, or shit, even the Widow, even though it, well, the 20mm cannons aren't exactly the best thing for ground attack most of the time. They're not good enough to hit hard targets very well, and they're overkill for light targets. So you just wind up with something that doesn't have as much ammunition as a 50 cal, which really can't really do anything better than it. Honestly, in a lot of cases, 50 cals are better. You can take, if you have a nose full of 50 cals, you can take out light pillboxes like nothing. So, it doesn't even really make sense, to be honest. Why are 20mm cannons this fucking bad? I know that they weren't exactly the best things in the world. Let's see, do we want to take two 500 courtesy bombs? Sure, why the fuck not? Alright, let us begin. But like I was saying, I know the 20mm Hispano wasn't exactly the best performing gun in the world in terms of, like, well, mechanics, really. The American copy of it was complete shit, really. The British ones were pretty okay, it's just that, well, when the Americans copied the design, or rather, licensed the design, they changed, I believe it was something to do with the feeding mechanism, or something or rather. I think the Americans ones used a shorter cartridge, and that wound up with a whole lot of jamming issues. So most of the time, like, the A-20, for example, initially had whatchamacallit, I think it was either 2 or 4, I can't remember exactly. But the A-20 initially had 20mm cannons, but they were so shit they just stripped them out and put more 50 cals in it, and it was more effective. Though, funny on that case, I believe the Russians, who were basically who operated the A-20 more than the American Air Force did, I believe they, in some cases, stripped out some of the 50 cals and put 23mm like VYAs, the cannons that are on the IL-2 in the nose. I'd like to see that, because that'd actually be pretty interesting. It'd also be a really terrifying ground attack weapon, since the VYAs are actually fairly efficient at being, you know, ground attack weapons. It's just that most of them, all of the planes have wing-mounted cannons, and so the convergence is shit. But whatever, enough of my autism, let's get to playing the game here. So, we got a Sky Raider, and we're gonna attempt to do the same thing we did in the P-47, but hopefully, not get totally shot by an ME-410. See, we've got a parade of B-17s up there. Good on you, boys. They're winning the war. And a bunch of, well, your occasional, well, your standard, you know, case fighters. You got a premium Spitfire over there, another Spitfire, something else, P-47, Tempest, and a Bearcat. So, looks like a pretty standard allied team. Yes. Oh, both of those, well, actually, no. We got a special one here. We've got a Mark, what is it, 14? E, right? I'm reading my Roman numerals correctly here? Yes. And, well, Mark 9Cs, or, well, the broken Spitfire, as everyone called it when it was released. They ruled allied teams and were destroying everything. So much so that they had to actually split that Spitfire into early and late models, so they can have an excuse to not have that Spitfire with its 100 octane gasoline, which was causing it to climb hysterically fast and basically beat the ever-loving shit out of everything that it fought. People were pissed off at that thing, but honestly, at that point I was still flying the TU-2, and I was more pissed off at the Dora pilots. Fuckers. Well. Dorners are up there having fun. How did that Dorner get... How did that 355 get all the way over there already? I know they're fast, but they're not that fast. Jesus Christ. I'd also play that more, but honestly, one of the main shortcomings I found with the 335 is the fact that it controls really shittily in precision maneuvers. Like, you can dogfight with it, but to have the kind of precision with ground attack to, you know, have a strafing run and actually hit the targets as you're coming in, it's really hard to fucking control. And that's really, that kind of makes or breaks a plane for me. And wow, they're actually just murdering everyone down there. Jesus Christ. But like I was saying, that's kind of makes or breaks a plane for me in terms of the ground attack role, because I like to have precision control, and which is why I use mouse aim, because mouse aim is far superior than joystick control in literally every capacity. Though, it's not that I don't want to have a joystick and an Oculus Rift and go play simulator battles. I'd go play that. But under normal circumstances, when I'm grinding, I like to have a plane that is very, very responsive at low speeds, and also very, very, you know, maneuverable, and has, well, enough speed to get itself out of trouble, or enough armaments to keep things away, and have, well, armaments that actually can kill ground attacks. Those are my qualifications. Well, can kill ground attack targets, sorry. But in a lot of cases, you really have to root around for these types of things, and in some cases, you're gonna run into planes that are really good with some things, but have amazing deficiencies in others. Like the Duck. But the Duck gets away with, you know, being kind of lackluster because the premium Duck makes so much goddamn money, and it's so efficient at ground attack. There is almost nothing on par with the German Mark 103 30mm gun for ground attack. It liquefies anything it hits, aside from hardened, like, full-size pillboxes, which nothing with guns can destroy, not even 75mm cannons on the PBJ, which is really fucking disappointing, but oh well. Sorry. Working up a bit of an autistic spit around my mouth. I'm foaming at the mouth for all my autism. I want to sit here and ramble about planes and my woes all day long, and we're really far off the map here. This is what I get for not checking, but hey, we're safe now. Kind of. That one B-17 made it all the way to the enemy base, and he has, well, Willy Wonka following him. That's probably a Dora, but we'll just kind of zip over here and take out the rest of this base for this B-17. And also, I'm still waiting for them to put the later models of the Sky Raider in, which give you 4 wing-mounted 20mm cannons, which is, well, still not as effective as a ground... It's still not really that effective of a ground attack weapon, but at least it's better than 2. Ooh. We got a laser light show going up there, and, yeah, that B-17's basically dead. Well... So, what's my team doing here? Let's see, we've lost 3 B-17s already. And we've killed, well, 5 enemies. It looks, well, fairly even in terms of, well... It looked fairly even, but honestly, we're just kind of losing planes a lot faster. We lost most of our bombers, but we still have plenty of fighters around, but it doesn't look like, well... anything's gonna go well for our team over there. See, this is the problem. This is kind of the problem, and this is why people hate playing allied teams, because we like to play our bombers. The problem with German teams is, because their bombers and ground attack planes are so shit on average, except for a very, 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 very few shining examples, that no one plays bombers. So what you get is people who play purely fighters, and they play Axis fighters. And unfortunately, because the balance is so shit against bomber and fighters, the German teams have a significant advantage because nobody wants to play their terrible bombers. So what you get in a lot of cases are, you know, significant stacked advantages, to whereas if the bombers don't shoot down anyone, the fighters aren't going to be able to withstand the number of fighters that the enemy team has and actually fight on a, you know, fair and balanced level. So what you get is an automatic loss, essentially. Though the Germans still do fuck things up. Boy, look at all those laser lights over there. Look at all that mine shoes. I don't know what's going on with that B-17, but he's still technically alive? Oh no, everyone's dead. Actually, he's still alive, but everyone's dead now. Alright, well. The joys of being a ground attack pilot. We missed the battle, but everyone's dead. Aside from that Tempest and that B-17. Wait, actually, no, that B-17's dead. But Willy Wonka crashed. That's about the only guy over here. So, let's just do this. Bombs away! Ow. Little too close to the ground. But okay, it's a Sky Raider. It can tank it. I go back for the ground targets, but you know what? I just want to keep moving forward because we're gonna have shit like this. Hello, Spaghetti. I'm going to head on you because it's the only way I'm actually going to kill you.
Commencing attack.
And I jammed the guns. All right. I've got a backup plan for that. Yeah, you better keep turning up there. The Sky Raider is still pretty much unupgraded, so unfortunately, well, the gun's jammed immediately because American 20mm cannons are shit. Oh, okay. Hey, Dorner, come down here. Oi, catch. Ah, well, I'm not in the zone with the rockets enough to really do that, and yeah, I died. Well. Nothing we could really do. And that's kind of the shame with ground attack, but the Tempest got him. Good on you, Tempest. Well, off we go. That is kind of the shame with ground attack, because that's why most people just don't spec into it, because you'll get into situations like that, where you don't really have any way of defending yourself, and you just die. Because in a lot of cases, fighters have hilarious advantages over ground attack planes in terms of maneuverability, and you just can't escape from them most of the time. There are very few ground attack aircraft that can actually outspeed the fighters of their tier, which is, well, really unfortunate, because it just doesn't seem like the ground attack players are really just given enough weight. Aside if you play something like, you know, an A-20, for example, at a lower tier with guns that actually hurt. So let's go play that. Unfortunately, the Sky Raider is not really living up to my expectations as a ground attack plane and really can't defend itself. You see, I want to like that plane. I want to play that plane more effectively. It's just that you just fucking die. And that really pisses me off, even as a ground attack player. I know and understand that what I'm doing is essentially suicidal because I'm giving the altitude advantage to my enemy and I have no defensive armament. So, if anyone sights me up, I'm gonna have to shake them off my tail, and in large part, you don't get people off your tail, unless you have assistance. So it's just like, at best, it's a dice roll, but, you know, I'm a fighter in these situations. I wouldn't be a ground attack pilot if I wasn't. But, you get what I mean, though. It's still frustrating because it's like, yeah, you just die. And it really isn't, like, if ground attack was a way more profitable, like, if every ground attack plane was the premium duck in terms of, or around the premium duck in terms of income, I would shut up. Because I would say like, okay, I died, but I walk away with a big pile of money. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm still making progress, even though I would accept that my role is logically suicidal and very, very risky to partake in. The thing with fighters that most people, like, center on, like, because they'll use excuses like, oh, it's more exciting, oh, it's skill-based. Honestly, playing a fighter and climbing is safe. Disgustingly safe. Because you're just playing to the advantage there. If you go higher than your enemy can't attack you. And if you have an altitude advantage on your enemy, they can't fucking do anything. So, realistically speaking, fighters is absolutely fucking disgustingly safe. And honestly, to me, playing Climb Wars is fucking boring. Because it's so damn safe. It's rinse and repeat. It doesn't really... It's really isolated up there where you... Okay, so I'm just fighting other people playing fighters. And honestly, I understand that sort of mystique. I understand, you know, the eternal conflict of fighter pilots killing other fighter pilots and shit like that. That eternal duel. I understand that. However... That's not the only way we used fucking planes, guys. And in a lot of cases, honestly, fighter versus fighter combat is some of the most irrelevant shit in the grand scheme of warfare. Oh, good. I rambled enough to get a game. But like I was saying, so we're trying to, like, take this map, for example. It's the Allies invading Sicily, and we have ground targets, you know, we have ground units attempting to take the ground from the German-Italian force down there, and they're attempting to advance in and, you know, tighten the noose on, you know, the Italian menace. But it's like, so you have all of that stuff going on down there, and you have the ground attack planes and the bombers that are actually contributing to that fight down there on the ground, the fight that matters in the grand scheme of things. But what is the single most important thing in this game, apparently? Fighter combat. What actually doesn't contribute jack all to the actual ground war? Fighter combat. So it's like, why the fuck is this so heavily incentivized? Why is this the thing that we're playing when we're fighting a war? It's a thing that I never understood, and this is why I spec so heavily into ground attack, because it makes me feel like I'm fucking doing something. Even though, yes, at the end of the day, I'm just shooting at defenseless, or nearly defenseless, ground targets, you know, over and over again. But you know what? There's at least a little bit of escapism if you use your imagination. Fighters, they're just killing each other. You could try and, like, also have that level of escapism to whereas, you know, you're fighting to fight the war, but in a grand sense, you're not fucking doing anything, and most fighter pilots leave the ground attack and bomber players to fucking die. So they're not even escorts. So it's like, what are you really doing? Sorry, I hit my mic. But I hope you understand what I'm saying here, to whereas the entire scope of warfare is everywhere but in that fighter combat. But that seems to be the only thing that people really focus on. And that's why most people just play fighter planes, because cannon clicking people to explode them is easy and fun. Haha. Really, it severely rustles my jimmies. And honestly, I'm okay with being, you know, having to do the suicidal thing if I have a plane that works, like the A-20. It's just that, once again, like in World of Tanks, I was looking for a plane to be mine. At least in War Thunder I have that. It's the fucking Tu-2. That's my goddamn plane. Nobody was playing that fucking plane before I started making a show out of it. Nobody. Everyone fucking ignored it. I sat there for a year, probably about 2 years, honestly, making videos of it and posting in the War Thunder General thread while people were going on about how bombers are completely useless. And they're just there to die, and they don't make any money. Why would anyone play this? And there I was in the Tu-2, which only has one bomb, by the way, killing 30 ground targets and knocking out, like, you know, 3 planes a game. I had fun making that. Like, making that a thing. That was my mission. That was my cross to bear. Making people realize that, no, bombers are pretty okay, you just have to play the right one. But the A-20 is also one of those planes that, well, gets the ground attack thing done pretty well. Mainly because it's a hybrid plane. Like the Tu-2, it's not necessarily a purebred bomber, horizontal bomber. It's essentially a twin-engine, well, it's a heavy fighter, essentially. But in a lot of cases, most twin-engine planes are severely fucked. Excuse me as I sight up this spaghetti. Bye-bye! Although, that's my rudder. That's my entire rudder. Oh, wow. Good thing I don't need it. Apparently. The plane still controls kind of fine, except we're a little bit odd on turning here. That might be a problem here. We might need to get out. But, well, there's that. And you have entertaining moments where you head on people and then, I won! Ha ha! Uh-oh. We got another spaghetti coming in after us. Alright, I think it's time to leave. And unfortunately, because I've lost my rudder, I can't really sight things up. But then again, honestly, the A20 is pretty okay with that too. Uh-oh. Ew. Whoop. Nope. Lost my gunner. Couldn't defend myself. Well. Oh well!
Attention to the map.
That was pretty okay in terms of everything. Honestly, I've had worse games. You've seen me play worse games. Oh well. I lost my gunner and couldn't defend myself. There's really nothing I could do. But what I was saying, honestly, is that, you know, I enjoyed, like, sitting there, and honestly, all this money that I have is partially the duck, but also mostly the TU, too. I mean, because look at this. Service record, realistic battles. All right, turn everything on. See, like, my overall victories here, but where are battles? Right? Battles, TU2, 600. I'm basically getting up there with the duck, but also you got to have the TU2 S59, the one with the 20mm cannon on the back, to add into that as well. So I was basically playing TU2s all damn day. But my win rate is still pretty shit, but, well, look at all this money. And also, well, now that I see that, yes, the duck has made significantly more money. Well, shit. I thought these numbers were actually bigger, but honestly, I don't trust these numbers, to be honest, anyway. The stat pages never fucking work, which is another thing that's nice. There's no win 8 bullshit in this game, because honestly, nobody ever really looks at stats. Like, I'm level 100. People probably look at me like I'm retarded when I screw things up, but I made it to level 100. Doesn't really matter. And it does, honestly, making it to level 100 doesn't really mean anything either. None of the actual progression stuff, aside from getting a plane, actually really matters. But let's try the A20 again. Since it seems like we actually had a bit of a shiny, teeny, tiny bit of luck there. Oh, Korea. Okay. But, as I was saying, going back to my original point here, bombers and ground attack planes really need to have way better focus, or way more focus in this game than all the glory these asshole fighters get. And also, we spawned late. Great, game in progress, fantastic. So now we get to take off. But bombers, honestly, justly so, should have more attention on them in terms of how the game plays out. Because we're actually fucking doing something. We're the ones that are actually affecting the battle on the ground, and also the game ending because there's no enemy air force left to fight the, you know, the actual air force, like the enemy air force. Or rather, there's no one left to defend against the enemy team, so the enemy team wins. Largely doesn't make any fucking sense anyway, because it's like, oh, so you had a bunch of fighters take out, you know, a mixed force of players. So that the mixed force of players, the bombers and ground attack pilots, can't actually affect the battle on the ground. Fantastic! What do the fighters do now? They go fucking home! Because they can't do anything else! So it's like, wow, okay, you stopped the enemy from intervening in the battle, but you didn't actually win the fucking battle. You didn't actually really affect the battle, you just stopped the sword from falling, a separate sword from falling above everything. The swords of the, you know, the sequence of events, the falling swords of, you know, the battle on the ground, the chess pieces moving on the ground are completely unaffected. So it's like, why does that mean a win for you? Why is that a good thing? I'm at a complete loss. Also, we're at a really low level. Those are iShacks and MiG-3s. That's kind of nice. That's a Chaika. So, it's probably the cannon Chaika, but whatever. But, this is one of my core frustrations as a bomber pilot. I can accept that my role is suicidal in nature, but it should be valuable, because by logic it's valuable. I'm helping the war effort on the ground, which is the entire war that we're fighting. You can't win a war without having boots on the ground. You can sit there bombing shit, but if you don't actually affect the things on the ground, there's nothing that it really affects. Like, you can piss people off, But unless you're gonna, like, level entire fucking cities and destroy hundreds of, you know, civilian lives in the process, you're not really gonna affect anything. So it's like, why am I so far in a corner here? Why am I the one who doesn't matter, when I should be the one that matters the most? That's not really, like, trumping myself up here, but honestly, it's like, a fighter is an air superiority weapon. You win air superiority, but what do you do with the air superiority? You call in ground attack planes and bombers, and then you destroy the enemy by the advantage that you've won. The air players just play for air superiority, and when they win air superiority, there's nothing that they do, because they can't. Their planes aren't specialized for that. So really, air superiority fighters, in logic, should be a supporting role to the hordes of bombers. But for some reason, no one wants to play that game. No one thinks that's a fun game to play, even though I'd play that game all day long. Fuck, I'd play a fighter pilot and escort bombers too, and feel good doing it, because I know my role. I'm saving their asses from basically everything that's trying to kill them. And I'm making sure, because they get through, we're going to win! And I kind of just stole some of the bomb points from whoever is above me. Who is above me? Oh, it's a B-34. Okay. Another plane also I want to see in here is the Marauder, even though it wasn't a terribly good plane. But, you know, something in addition to the A-20 and the B-25, because I feel like it's sort of a hybrid of those planes. But, like I was saying, there's really, it's just like I said before, it's a game of Counter-Strike with a bomb that doesn't work, or a bomb that doesn't really do anything. You just kill everybody, and honestly, when you kill everybody, you don't actually win anything aside from the game patting you on the back and saying like, oh, okay, you killed everyone. You guys win and get to walk away with all of the credits, when logically, if you look at the situation that you've just done, if you look at it in a realistic way, you really haven't done much. You've done half the job of the Air Force, but you're not really gonna do anything else. Like, you're not gonna decide the battle on the ground, but then again, the battles on the ground necessarily, they're, in a lot of ways, if you look at them very, very closely, they're designed to be stalemates, and they're designed to be affected by iShack. Cannon iShack. I can't hit him. Yeah, I lost my gunner. I couldn't zero in on him fast enough. Oh well. We'll keep trying. Believe me, I didn't get to where I was in this game by giving up every time I got shot down by some jackass. I kept going. But, well, off to hangar again. But, you know, I sense that I might be uselessly complaining and bitching and whining, but you see my points here, really. Ground attack and bombers should be some of the most important things in the game, and they should have the sway of the fight. It's the fighters that should be the deciding factor, but they've taken that to an extreme, to whereas the fighters are the deciding factor for fucking everything, and the ground attack players and bombers are completely irrelevant. Let's try the Widow. And this pisses me off to no end, and it doesn't seem like anyone thinks this is a problem. Or, like, the people who Gajin listens to don't seem to think that this is a fucking problem. You know, Russian cannon clicker players, that their lowest common denominator. And honestly, in a large sense, they're not even really working on planes all that much. They're concentrating on playing tanks because, well, gotta get that sweet tank money from wargaming. And so everything about the game right now is kind of just ignoring the realistic battle game that I walked into, and I spec'd into, and I'm still spec'd into quite, you know, largely, if you see by all my fucking planes. Though, this is basically just left to sit here and rot, because they're not really paying attention all that much. Which, again, pisses me off to no end. But I play this game mainly because, well, like I said, it is the only game like this. I mean, I'd play a hardcore simulator, but there aren't that many of them which can reach the level of War Thunder's sort of pick up and play ability, mainly because, yes, they're fucking simulators. There's a mystique to simulator games, like, for example, Cold Waters, the submarine game I'm also playing on the channel, if you happen to be looking around. Though that game is somewhat lighter on simulation, it's somewhat a little bit more compact, but it's still very heavily on the simulator where it's like, yeah, things are really, really unfucking forgiving and mostly realistic. But the thing is, those games have a bit of mystique because there's a clunk to it. You're not able to really play it like, you're not able to play it like this, like in War Thunder, for example. Like for mouse controls. Mouse controls in flying games do not even come close to this game. War Thunder's mouse controls are the king of flight games. These are the best mouse controls I have ever played in any flying game ever, and nobody gets close to this. And it's kind of frustrating to see people continue on to make flying games that are arcadey, sort of like War Thunder, and have mouse controls that just aren't this good. Like, that's one of the main reasons why I like flying in War Thunder, because it's easy, it's satisfying. But the problem is, in a simulator game, you don't have that, but there's clunk in a simulator game. There's a slowness, there's a protracted sort of pace that you don't get in this game because, well, mouse controls are so efficient. Like, I'm not gonna be able to effectively fly my plane and maneuver and shoot back and man every gunning station on for example, a multi-gunner plane as efficiently as I do in War Thunder. There's gonna be a bit of clunk, but also on the other side of that, you're not gonna be able to engage an enemy plane in a fighter, especially a bomber, with the same level of just razor sharp fucking, like, MLG quickscope fucking precision. Because you also have to fight against the realistic portions of your own plane in order to do that. Because you don't have magical, automatic rudder trim to make sure that shooting things in front of you is easy as hell. I would need to step on the rudder simultaneously in order to actually get the same thing that I'm doing by just moving the mouse left and right here, wiggling around. This is incredibly powerful. But it's also very hard to do in, well, other flying games because you need to have, you need to basically learn how to simultaneously manipulate your rudders and your control stick in order to actually get the same level of motion. And even then, it's not nearly the same level of precision of just looking at an area and then pulling the trigger. Those were slightly off. What's behind me? More spaghettis. So I'm gonna try and skirt the spaghettis. I'm only gonna get a little bit of pasta. But they're going after that Halifax. And I'd like to play British bombers, to be honest. My home, I suppose my most endearing heavy bomber is not the B-17, not anything that the Russians have, it's the Lancaster. I had fun in the Lancaster, even though it was, like, hilariously over-leveled, and the 7.7s, through most of its lifespan, could not do shit. But it was kind of funny, because if you played up there with jets are incredibly delicate. So, you could potentially knock out a jet with, just 30 cals. And it was entertaining when you did that, and so that was another one of my, slapping God in the face kind of things. Like, here I am, this humble, stately Lancaster, slapping fucking shooting stars and MiGs out of the air. That's funny. That's where I get my entertainment. Most people would probably call me a masochist if they saw what I usually do in order to get that sort of entertainment, but it's rewarding to me. And this is kind of why I come and play Ground Attack. It's just that I still get pissed off when I look at the state of most of the game, to where it's like, my role should be more valuable than it is. But it doesn't seem like anyone fucking agrees with me, so I'm never gonna get that. So, honestly, I think, eventually, War Thunder for me is gonna go to the same way that World of Tanks went, whereas I'm just gonna give up one day. I haven't reached that point yet, because, there's still some fun to be had here, and I can still pull off some bullshit occasionally. And there's still places where I can hide, still places where I can get fun out of these things, still planes that I could get because I want them. And planes that are mostly, still effective in the large scale of things. They're just not, you know, exactly what I want. But it's not as kind of a shutout situation as, you know, World of Tanks is right now with armor not being relevant at all. I can still fight back against fighters with my guns. I just have to be lucky. And when I am lucky, I piss people off. And I get rewarded for it when I actually do that. It's hard, but it's worth it in a, you know, in some cases. Not necessarily as worth it as I'd like it to be, though. Ah! I was gonna get him, and then I was gonna get that guy, but I got killed by the other guy coming directly. Actually, no, I got killed by the guy who's head on him. Oh well. 4 planes with cannons. Fuck it.